And we're back.
You should show off actually the filter.
Can you repeat that?
If you're gonna do more with collections,
Yeah.
show the yeah, filter.
Filter is here. You want me to do something specific?
Yeah, do something.
Fancy with filter.
Yeah, yeah. Populations above. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one. Populations above 0. So, well, you're forcing me into not YOLO. So population is, I'm gonna do YOLO again. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 10, 11. Hmm?
What do you mean by yellow?
YOLO? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Is it YOLO?
Yeah, YOLO.
Oh,
YOLO.
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay. That should be better, right? Barely. Let's try it. Oh, for people that didn't hear what he said, he wants to look at an example where using filter, and it's just not filtering the empty rows, but something more advanced. Sorry? Well, he wants an example where I have a CSV file, but I'm not interested in all the rows, but only the rows having a population bigger than. But I'm not following. The final goal is to not save the rows in the database. That's the final goal.
It's also mostly because filter is probably one of the most of the functions we've seen. Filter's probably the other one that I use the most. So it's the one that's probably most useful. For of the other ones that we haven't seen.
So I'm gonna break this, like this is kind of a half cities with a population of more than 100,000. So I want to save cities in which their population is more than 1,000 people. So I'm gonna use filter again. After parsing the line and parsing the number. Second line.
Why not every?
Because every goes on each element at the end returns true or false. I'm not interested in the Boolean, I'm interested in the data. So filter those in which the line population is more than 100,000. Sometimes that's difficult to read because filter, you know if you have to be positive or negative about it. So another way to think about it is to tell reject what is less than that. So sometimes you see if you see it better in the negative terms, you can use it. I prefer using filter.
Isn't mine actually the
At this point is an entity, that you're right. But an entity is also array access. Is it clear what I did here? Let me try that again. That's it. So I refresh. And I have less cities. Now I have 3,500 cities. And if I sort by population, I can see that there are no cities with less than 100,000. So with one line of code, well, 3 to be more exact, we remove cities that we were not interested in. Thanks for the suggestion, Jason. Questions about filter? Nope. Okay, let's change a bit the subject and actually go and create our classes now. Let's create the tables, cake, bake, model, cities, well, first countries, cake, bake, model, cities, and cake, bake, model, languages. And open the cities table. We verify that it created correctly. We have belongs to countries. That is exactly correct. And let's create a finder that is able to return those cities with a population more than X. So let's create a finder. Public function finder. I find bigger than. So it receives a query, an array of options. So it returns the cities with a population bigger than the given number. Okay, so I accept a required argument of population. I usually do this. The number of people in the city. And I return query where population, cities.population is more than options population.
That would just return.
Yep, sorry. It's more than.
One question. Do you see any importance if the alias should be changed?
Yeah, there is a problem. He's saying that I hard coded here the cities as an alias when I could have used this alias. If you plan to reuse this table for other association names, then by all means use that. Just for brevity, just because the screen size is short, I don't want to do that.
How come you didn't use the GT function?
How come? Brevity as well. If I use a GT function, which is what you suggest here, let me try that.
I know it's just more to write.
It's more to write.
It exists, and you're a core developer, and you're demoing it, and you're not using it. Why would we use it? A lot of responsibility, I know, but
I know. It's that it serves a different purpose. I like the array notation because it's concise. It's quite clear what it's doing. And not only that, I have developed with Cake since I was born, basically. And this is the syntax of find since the beginning. So for me, it's mentally difficult to change. It's also more to write when you use the GT function.
Are there any cases where the GT function is preferable?
Yes. One that's gonna be in my talk for Sunday. I have stuff like this in my projects. GT is not a function in Cake. GT is a global function that I defined that returns a function that calls GT. So to even write less code, I have a lot of like between GT, LT, and that reads a lot better than the arrays. Most.
Hacks, I think they're called, aren't they?
Yeah. Actually, I'm working on a library, not done yet, where GT is you do something like builder is a func. It's not the syntax with population, right? So now you can do something like build GT number. So you can create dynamic conditions on that. But not ready yet. That's one of the reasons. The reason that it exists is that it allows you to defer the condition until something else happens, and with more power. Does anyone know, or anyone here does not know what we're talking about with the GT function? Raise your hand. No, you. So the GT function is. Huh? No. He means that you can pass a function to where and return the expression GT population options population. So you can be more verbose about what to return here. And this is chainable. So you can write this is less than. Yeah, this still creates SQL, but you enter like in a builder mode. So you were creating a query, and then you enter in builder mode where you wire a new condition, a complex condition together, return that, and you continue building the query. So that's where it's useful. Is that when you don't want to break the pipeline, like the fluent interface. If it's complex and that you cannot fit it in an array, then you do that. The other reason for using GT is when the population or the field part is not a string, because you cannot use objects as the key in arrays in PHP. So if the field part is a SQL expression object, then you're forced to use GT, to use a function here. That's the second reason it exists. Well, let's go back to the simple one. And let's try it. Do you agree? I agree. Let's go to our console. Cities. So I got the cities, find, bigger than, $100,000. to list. And I got a bunch. Let me just take a few. And I got one city and another city. I think that's not new to you. Was doing this type of finder? No, I think I covered that yesterday somehow. But let's make it a bit more complicated. Let's find let me formulate a question. Let's find countries having cities with a population bigger than 1 million. How do we do that? Does anyone know? You do? No one knows. You do? Kind of? The person next to you? Kind of. Okay. I just need ideas. Like, if I were not here and you get that requirement in your application, try to think, what would you do?
Go through the cities.
Loop through the cities? That's valid? Someone else? You're fired.
Group cities by countries or something. Group cities by countries and
Group cities by country, that's also valid, yes.
Contain with a finder.
Contain, yes. Let's try contain. Let's go to the countries table. And find, create a finder. Public function find with big cities. So countries with big cities. It receives a query. And an array of options. I want this. Returns the countries with a population, with having cities, with a population bigger than the given number. So I will return a query where, well, you know contain, right? Otherwise you were not paying attention to Jorge, and Jorge is going to be really sad. So you can contain cities. Let me put it in a new line. With a custom finder here. Where, let me pass the options as well. Where cities dot, well, somehow we already have a finder for that, right?
Yep.
Fantastic. So find bigger than well, I just need to pass the same options. Now, this would be like, Jose told me to pass the options along, and I'm doing it in all projects. Don't do that. Why do I keep writing location? Options. Okay, so this is going to get the cities, the countries, and then it will find the cities which are bigger than the given population. Let's try that. So useless. So countries is T get countries. So countries find with, what was the name? With big cities. What happened there? Countries find with big cities, and the population is 1 million. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Take 2 to list. Don't be disappointed. All in not know. Yeah. You are required to return here. Let's see what I got here. I got a country, Aruba. Who knows Aruba? Well, we're here. It's an island of the Netherlands. Does that sound correct, that Aruba has a city with more than 1 million people? I don't think so too. That's pretty... exactly. That's weird. What happened? But at the same time, I don't have cities. So why? What does this mean? Something went wrong. Oh, I have one. I have one. Afghanistan has one city with more than 1 million. So I have some results with cities, some others with no cities. Obviously, those that don't have cities are those that don't have it's a city with a population of more than 1 million. So how do I evolve from here? I got the answer already, but pretend that you didn't hear the answer. Yeah, you could use a collection method, for example. So you could use a collection where filter that the cities are not empty, for example. Yeah. Do you want me to show that or go directly to the right answer? Directly to the right answer. So there is another method that is not called contain, but it's called matching. That is very similar to contain. It only receives 2 arguments, cannot receive an array. That it works exactly like that. The same thing that I passed to contain, I passed to matching. And it does exactly what I wanted. It's now get the countries with the biggest city. Boom. And I get the first one would be Afghanistan with some cities. The second one is Algeria with one single city, and so on and so on. Yeah, it should be no. That it should be only one city. Yeah, I can only. So one thing that, thank you for mentioning that. One thing that happens is that before I had countries as an array of multiple cities. Sorry, I had cities as an array of multiple cities. Now matching transformed that to use a join, which means that I will have one country and one city paired. So Afghanistan with, I don't know what the city is, Kabul, paired in one row. If Afghanistan had another one, would be Afghanistan, another city. If it had another one, Afghanistan, another city, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So I will have the matching rows. So this one matches with that, that's a result. This one matches with this, another result. Sometimes you don't want this. I mean, I got to the right answer. I got the countries. If they have more than one city with a large population, then I need to filter them out. So I need to say distinct on countries.id. So this will only return the single countries. Thank you, MySQL. So since MySQL 5.7, this is annoying. Let me just get, oops. I'm going to ignore the problem for now by copying this. Do you understand what the problem is? What it's telling me to do is that I'm grouping by countries IDs, but since MySQL 5.7, you cannot just group by something random as you could before 5.7. And yeah, arguably so. I mean, before they had a team of people blogging why the decision was correct, and now they decided to they decided to not be correct anymore. So. So in app.php, oh well, that could be annoying. To do it right or not to do it right? That is a question. So we need to not do that. So unfortunately, this is what I'm going to do. So countries, connection, execute, set SQL mode, this. I don't remember how to disable it. And yeah, empty apparently. I don't have countries. There you go. There you go. I'm ignoring the problem for now. If you're interested in the right solution, we can talk later. That's actually something standing for Cake to make it better for you in MySQL. So yeah, I got now distinct countries in my list. They're not repeated anymore. But what if I want the countries unique, but the cities in an array? I use containable again. That's the right answer. So one way to do it, and this is my favorite way, is that since I don't care about the matching column Sometimes the column, the city that matched, sorry, is important to know. It's like, this is the city that was matched for your find. Sometimes you don't care about it. So there's another function that does exactly the same but doesn't return the information. And it's called inner join with. I don't need to change anything else, but I'm going to get this function here. As a finder. Okay, and call contain on that. Make sense?
No. Why do you just you need a join and a contain?
Okay, so the requirement is now I want the single countries having cities with a population of more than 1 million, but I also want to know what the cities are in an array inside each country. So the only way to do that is to first filter the countries and then find the cities with the same conditions and put them into the countries. Okay? The other way would have been to use a collection function to do exactly the same that this is doing, only with one SQL function less, SQL call less. So I need this, and I call this, and now I can see that the cities are here inside. Let me see if there's one with more than one city in the first. Yeah, here's one. So we have a country with 2 cities having more than 1 million citizens. And that's our answer. Okay? So let's study another example, which is, let's find cities whose population is bigger than the whole population of Denmark, which is a country. Denmark is a small country. It's around 6 million people.
Yeah.
Are there any cities in the world having a population bigger than the whole of Denmark? Most probably, yes.
I have one question. I had my problems with things because I had my problems with seeing the points aside of performance. But here now, the output and the console is nice. We want to just use the collections. How would I go ahead? Would I somehow use some of the methods and then inside check if it's again a collection to iterate again? Or how would that work? Like to have a list that looks nice.
If you were using the first method of a collection, to filter with a collection, or to group by collection? Was that the question? I'm not following your...
Group by collection.
I didn't follow you.
I'll ask this on the chat. And
Okay. So who's brave enough to go solo on that question? Cities that are bigger than the population of Denmark.
Mexico City.
Hmm?
Mexico City.
Well, I don't want the solution verbally. I want the code. Yeah.
where select, where city is Denmark, select the population, and then
I'll give you 2 minutes to think about the possible solution. I need to go to the toilet and then come back and help you with that. Okay? Sorry? Toilet. At least conceptually. No one?
We build a population finder in countries table,
Uh-huh.
and then go to the cities table, build a find bigger as Denmark finder, build the finder of
Okay, I like that. So, let's start with a simple finder, which is public function find Denmark, Denmark's population. Okay. Query. Return query. Select population. Where what do we have here? Countries. Where is Denmark here? I passed that already. Here. Where ID. Okay. So I got Denmark. Denmark's population.
a nice enhancement part to do a finder for the population, pass the param in, and then make the default Denmark.
Why not?
Then we could
Or
read more and more.
find population. You mean that? Find population.
We could just pass the country ID in.
Yeah, why not? Like that? Okay, so I got the
You could say if options country is empty, then it's Denmark, I suppose.
too much. So cities, I go to cities because I want the cities that are bigger than Denmark. Wait a second, I already have a function that is bigger than. That's interesting. So what about creating another finder called function find bigger than country? Query array options. So I want cities bigger than and that receives a population, right? Something here. We also want the country. This countries find population country. I put this here. Options country. So far so good? I got the population of a country and I have a potential call to bigger than. So I finally just do this. Makes sense, right? Let's try it. Countries. Find, oh, I want a city, sorry. Cities equals T get cities. Cities find bigger than country. Country D and K. Take one. And we immediately know that there was more than one, at least. Well, that's fine. We immediately know that there are many cities that are bigger than Denmark. Let me just take the first. There you go. So the first one that matches is Sao Paulo with crazy lot of people. Before you look at the query, what do you think the final query looks like? You said something?
Subqueries.
It's a subquery, exactly. For anyone that didn't notice, I never executed the find. I just put the find here. So if I go and see what was executed, I can see, and it says, cities.population is more than select the population of Denmark. Isn't that pretty cool?
So that would break if you were selecting more than one column?
If I were selecting more than one column, it would definitely break, yes. That's why if you have a finder returning more than one column, by default, for some reason, you do specifically here, select population true, which means overwrite. That's the only column I want.
What does true do?
It's called overwrite. Overwrite. Hmm? Yeah, you can also do use a constant, which is query.
Oh, it overwrites the previous.
Overwrite. You can do that as well. That's more verbose. Thank you. More clear. That's what I wanted to say. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, don't jump into conclusions. A subquery doesn't mean slower. Databases are very smart, especially now, like current databases. MySQL used to be slow and dumb with subqueries, but now it's really smart with subqueries. It knows really how to optimize a subquery and make the most out of it. So in most of the things I do, I try first with a query, mixing subqueries, joins, etc. If, well, the database turns out that it cannot optimize it, I help it a bit by using collection functions, by creating temporary tables, by breaking it a bit to hint at what is the path that it needs to take. But don't jump into the conclusion that doing a complex query means slower. It's most probably going to be faster than doing the processing in PHP. I don't need this. Okay, so you have another assignment. Countries have these two variables, or these two columns, which are continent and where is it? It's called region, exactly, which is like the sub-region of a continent. For example, if it's America, it's North America and South America. So what I want you to do is to create a finder that returns all the countries first grouped by top level continent and then grouped by the region, and finally for each region the information of the country. And a hint, do it with collections. Sorry to interrupt. Do you see the value of using the subquery instead of just using a find? Maybe it's not clear why. Is there a reason? In this case, there might not be a great reason or a big one. Yeah, but one of the reasons is that you can do more subqueries inside, so the conditions become larger, or you can have an array, for example, here. You can have an array of countries. So you're giving flexibility to the finder for the caller to create more complex conditions, not to limit it to one single number, but to something more abstract. Is anyone close to finishing? Is anyone stuck? Raise your hand now. Is anyone working on it? Is anyone ignoring me? No? This should be the solution. So I'm using the function format results that can be thought as an after find that is scoped only to the query object. So once the query is iterated for the first time, first, before iterating it, go through this function, format results, and pass it the results of that query. Then
Results a collection object that
it is a collection object, yes. It is actually a result set object, which is a collection. So I get the results, I group them by continent, then I have groups of continents. So for each group of continent, I group them again by region.
Where's the collection variable coming from? The collection
Oops,
of continents?
what barrel?
And you couldn't do just two group buys magically.
That's on my list to make it magic like that, but currently it's not possible. You need two.
Maybe just add this to the docs and be done with it. Like,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know, instead of adding magic.
Yeah, why not? There's actually this the third video in which I appear doing this, and the third repo I create was doing this. Then I think it's time to make it in the into docs. Any questions about what I did so far?
Why do you access the collection around continent?
Because this here is actually an array. Group by returns a collection which has inside arrays. So as I want to group by something, I convert to collection. Yeah. So let's try it. Countries, find in regional groups. And I can see, this is a query, to array. Why to array, not to list? because I care about the keys. So since it's grouped, I will get the continent as key and the region as key. So I do care about the countries, about the keys. So I can see that I have Europe, and in Europe I have Southern Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Western countries, the Nordic countries, etc., etc. So this is it.
Could you show the find method that you wrote again?
So the final show-off would be to find with big cities not sure. Yeah. This is a query. Find with big cities. Let's not be like that. Let's just have 100,000. That's a query object. So now I can call query find in regional groups to array. There you go. So I have, to make it more clear what is inside, instead of returning a collection here, I return again to array. So you can see the results. So let's call our magic function pajamas. There you go. So I can see now a JSON encoded string with the country that are in a regional. That's a big region. Sorry? This is a series. No, the problem is that I'm getting with cities. That's the problem. Yeah, well, there's too much data. Let me make it smaller. So I have here one region, which is Asia, because all the cities, of course, it's going to take forever. But yeah, this is it. Obviously, all cities in Asia have more than 100,000 citizens. Any questions about this? You look confused, sorry. Okay, so open panel for ORM questions before I leave the ORM behind. Anything you wanted to ask about the ORM before?
Finding lists based on virtual fields.
Okay, find list based on a virtual field.
Yes. For example, we have user table and we have first name, last name, middle name, and we would like to use it, for example, in our vCards plugin.
Yeah, find with crazy column. Actually, let me not do a finder. Let me just show you here. So I'll create a query, which is query.
As a result, we would like
No, I think it's better if I show you here because it's going to be more than a few lines. Public function find with Yeah, but I'm just trying to collapse it into a single function so I can run it in the console and it doesn't take the full screen of code. With health string, I called it that. It's health string query. I call it health string because I'm gonna select return query find list. This has some arguments, which are the ID, the key field, sorry, and the value field.
Check your code.
Thank you. The key field will be ID, if you agree, and the value field will be
It would be supposed the full name.
the full name. So let's do something. It's a function now. That gets the entity. That's an important thing to notice. Entity, population, dash, entity, life expectancy. And what else? Here? Yeah, 1 second. Not sure what I'm missing.
Line 188, the one,
Ah, yeah.
It needs a return as well.
Return, yes, thank you. There you go. So let's try that. That was the countries, and then I need two countries. Find with health string. Well, it should have been health string, and that's it. Oh, sorry. Countries. Find with health string. Two. And that's it.
And the same is possible with the order key. So we have the key field, the value field, and we would like to order the result on the list.
Okay, so what I'm showing here is that it receives an entity. The order is too late or too early to have an entity. So you cannot use list with a query expression, and you cannot use order with an entity. So you either construct a query expression that is equivalent to this, and you order by that, or you sort at the end. So how do I construct something equivalent? So expression equals query func concat and that would be population as a literal or identifier, separation string, life expectancy as an identifier. Right, so I can select that now. I can do find. Let me select query, select the ID and the thingy as this expression. Okay? And then I say that the value field is thingy. Yeah, that's all. Is that clear so far? Let me do this. And now I can order. If that makes sense at all. Let's try that. That's it. Identifier. I make that mistake a lot. Null. Well, that's to be expected. There are some countries with a null information.
Yeah, this would be great in the docs. Maybe.
Yeah, the thing is, and it's what I explained the other day. When you build some expression, like in cat, that is not indexed by your database. So ordering by that, filtering by that, or doing that is most probably going to hit your database in a bad way, unless you have already filtered with a really good index. So my suggestion would be instead, if you're using MariaDB or MySQL 5.7, to use indexed virtual fields, where you create the concatenation as a extra virtual column in the table. You add an index to that, and you just filter and order by that. With use, I haven't done that, but in 5.7 you can definitely use virtual indexed columns. Virtual persistent is a name, and then add an index. In MariaDB you can do that since 2010. I figured out the other day. And with Postgres in forever. Yep. No more questions about the ORM before I jump? Good. So someone, it was Lucas again, wanted me to show view cells. Is that interesting to you? Yeah. So let's create, I'll go to the previous app that we had yesterday. I have been coding all this time in white background. Sorry about that. I'll go back to the application we had yesterday in the advanced branch, and let me start a server for it. So let's imagine that you wanted to replace, so let's talk what a view cell is first. Who's familiar with view cells somewhat? Okay, not many of you. So a view cell is the response Cake has to something called pool MVC. There are two types of web MVC, or there are many, but I would say there are two giant categories, which are push MVC and pull MVC. So push MVC means that you collect all the information in the controller beforehand, pass it on to the view, and the view assembles the display of the response. It assembles the response that the user will see. But there is a problem. There are sometimes fetching all the data in the controller is difficult, or it's a bit awkward. For example, should the controller be concerned about the data to display in a menu? Well, it's a difficult question. I would say no, because if you are only displaying like user/index, the controller should only display or fetch the data for the users and render that. So The hacks that were created in Cake 2 for doing that usually went by using components, by having a before render function in app controller that would always pass the data from the menu from that on. So that is a problem that is solved by pool MVC, which is the opposite. It's not the controllers pushing the data to the views. It is the views getting the data that they need. So even though WordPress is not MVC, we can call it a pool solution. Like you create a file whenever you want, and you call the functions, and you immediately get the information. And that's one of the reasons is most probably so popular, WordPress, because you have that liberty. No one is forcing you to create a really nice controller code where you pass on all the data and then you display it back. It's letting you create just a view file where you display the data that you needed. So as an answer to this problem, we figure out this concept. Why don't we have self-contained pieces of information that are coupled to a display, like a menu? So that's a view cell. And I think a menu where you need data is the prime example of how to use a view cell. Lucas was asking before if cells were for reuse, and I said not necessarily. They're more for encapsulating these pieces of information. They can be reused for sure, and there are many examples of that. But I would say that their main purpose is encapsulating data to a specific view. So let's go to users index CTP. Not sure what happened here. There you go. And let's imagine that I want here, next to the site nav, some sub-navigation here that need to display, let's imagine, campaigns. Campaigns having status completed, because we want a really nice menu always on the left, like a shorthand function for going to the campaigns that have recently completed. So let's imagine this. I want an UL with an LI with a completed campaign, and maybe just a title for it. Okay, should look something like this. So let's create one view cell. So bin cake bake cell completed campaigns. Right, now we have here, I should have in source view cell a completed campaign file, completed campaign cell file, which looks like this. It extends cell, it has some valid set options I'm not going to talk about right now, but it has a display function, which is the important part. Here I need to couple the data with a view. So let me find the data. So campaigns equals this load model newsletter dot campaign completed equals campaigns find where what was the name? CakeFest. Status is completed. Let me just call to list immediately. And said that this is like a controller. It has basically the same capabilities a controller has. This set compact completed. Okay, this looks like a controller, nothing difficult, nothing so different. And all cells have coupled a display.ctp or my function name.ctp in the folder of the same name of the cell. So I can look for it. .ctp is inside source template cell completed campaigns / displayed CTP. I open that and I have a empty file. I'm going to copy my template v4 from users index here. So complete campaigns is for each completed as campaign and for each campaign name. Questions about this? Couldn't be simpler. So if I go back to my users index, I can do here this cell completed campaigns. And that's it. That's a view cell.
I have a question. Can you do the same thing with elements by just making request action to a certain controller function?
Yeah.
So
That overrides that need.
elaborate a little bit, about what the difference, why did you switch to cells?
Because we saw no need to reroute everything inside the same app. It was better to have self-contained classes. It's mentally easier to think that a class fetches data and then renders a view than imagining a request going back to the dispatcher, going through the authentication, going through all the before filter, etc., and so on to display something. So that's why it's removed. Yeah.
Speaking of security, these functions, the display function, it's going to work everywhere, regardless of the page. Like it should, right? Because it's not a request, so basically, we don't have to worry about that, like in Cake 2. That
Yeah, you don't need exactly. Since you're already authenticated in that request, you are inheriting all the same user that the request has.
thanks.
The request section was also used to do things like Ajax updates to parts of HPMC apps, like multiple layout apps. And how would you do this for cells? Like the thing now, I just thought about it a minute, but the thing now I would do is it a good thing? I would do add.
No, I wouldn't use cells for Ajax. No, I would still for Ajax I would still call the controller action, because it's no, because it's an AJAX request, so it needs to go through HTTP to your app. So you lost the context of a request. You have already rendered something. You're in JavaScript land. You need to communicate to the server back.
That's okay. And then there's some answer coming back from the server. How to update the cells then?
But it doesn't have to be a cell. Just render the same action in the controller. So, for example, how do I render these users with as an AJAX request? This panel here.
If you have multiple panels and you update, you click a button on one of the panels and something updates, and because you're sending something to the server, something comes back. Now you just want to update that panel, not the other panels. It's different actions basically.
Yeah,
And would you do different actions?
definitely. Yes.
Different controllers there.
Yeah. If there are different panels, like a dashboard, I would render the dashboard, empty dashboard, and then fetch with AJAX each of the panels. And then keep each one of them separated with their own controller, action, and view. There's no need to have a single one rendering. Let's imagine that you have a dashboard with graphs. It's not very smart to render all the graphs, which will require time to fetch the data for, in a single request. It will take a lot of time to render that dashboard. Instead, if you just present the empty dashboard, and then with JavaScript, you fetch each with AJAX. Each of those panels, you will see some data coming to you faster than the other thing. You can also independently paginate, independently filter, independently do a lot of things you couldn't do in a single controller action.
But the rendering, which comes over Ajax, it will be rendered afterwards, as you described.
The what, sorry?
Is this, would you do it as a cell or as a block element?
The what? The response for AJAX.
Yes.
Well, one thing that you may know already is that Cake knows when it's an AJAX request and does not render the layout. So it would only render this part. This. Right? So you may not be interested in this. You may only be interested in this. So, yes, a block is better.
But not a cell. Not for this case.
I wouldn't use a cell now. Because cells are for containing the data. And the data already came from the controller. Because you could respond with the controller with a JSON request, with an AJAX request, with an HTML request, with a CSV request. You can respond to a lot of different formats. Yeah, that's my answer. So cells are not for that. Unless someone else has a different experience. I don't use it for it. Not sure how you're using cells in what you want. Yeah. So cells are really nice for this kind of stuff. Like when you have a layout with different elements that need dynamic data, then that's their use case. Hmm?
We also use them for,
Banners,
yeah,
advertisement.
we have like an invoice page,
Hmm.
right? And so we just pass back the order entity.
Exactly.
And the cell does the work of like processing it, displaying it, and whatnot.
Yeah, that's a great example, which is like kind of decorating entities that you pass to them, doing extracting more information, maybe fetching more information, and having a specific display for that data.
Is there a possibility in the cell to ask like variables like session or authorization or whatever?
Yeah, you get the request. Let's do that. You have access to a session, for example. Any other questions about cells? No? I got a request before for dealing with JSON in the database, but I think we have time for that. Sorry, who was it? You? Yeah, we can talk during the conference, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay.
Maybe let's stay with the view layer and talk about extending templates and layouts.
Repeat that so I can hear you.
So maybe let's stay in the view layer and talk about extending templates and layouts.
Extending in the view. Okay. That actually is a good idea. Let's go back to our users index CTP. So, as you can see, this nav is getting repeated, right? In all templates I have, this is kind of the same, and I would like to have the cell as an output in every of the templates. So one thing that I could do is to create a new sub-layout. So let's create a sub-layout. In source template layout, layout. Yeah. Can't remember if it's with S or without. Layout. Let's call it like 2-column .ctp.
There's no layout.
Layout. Thank you. So here we render two things. One is a sidebar, and the other thing is the content. What happened? Have syntax error somewhere? Really? No, this is a Vim syntax error. One second. There you go. So I want to get rid of the nav and maybe this thing here, this div. So I'm going to move it completely. I'm going to move this nav here. Let's just start simple. I'm not gonna make it that complicated. A sidebot here, and I'm gonna grab with this, remove this class because it's a bit too specific. And do this, fetch content. Okay, so now the only thing that I would have in my view is this. Does that make sense? Oh, this is add user. I was meaning to do it with. Sorry? With the yeah, but I wanted to do it in show the example in the index view, but it turned out to be in the add. But you can see that right now I removed the sidebar and I only got the big frame without anything grabbing it. So to get back my sidebar, what I can do is tell that this extend layout to columns. plugin newsletter layout 2 columns. That looks correct.
Without yes,
Oh,
several-
without the S. Okay, so now I have a sub layout that is extending the big layout. And now I can come back and put my cell here. Completed campaigns. There you go. And now I can do basically the same for all other views. Let's do it with index. I can remove this nav. I can remove this div. And I can go to the beginning and say this extend layout 2 column. This works best when you create your own bake templates. So you bake the views already with this extend. So you need to do it for each of the baked views. So if I go to list users, I can see that I keep the same. So unfortunately, this is not dynamic. That would require maybe a helper, but I'm not going to do that. Is that more or less what you wanted to see? Yes?
You mean with the dynamic that it changes the sidebar actions depending on the model, correct?
Yeah, but
Okay.
that would be a helper information. I don't know. I mean, there are many ways of doing that, and it's just work. It's not something that is a feature of KPHP.
What's the advantage of extending like this
Well,
instead of
maybe you can see it now. This is how it looked before.
instead of element? So why not use an element?
And this is how it looks now. Why not choose an element? Because an element doesn't let you grab the content around more stuff. So as you can see in my 2 column, I'm grabbing this stuff inside a div. I can even write the footer here. For example, this paginator is always the same. Why should I repeat it everywhere? Right? So you can put it here. So I have the paginator here.
You would have it in
Yeah, of course. But it's just an example of the things you can do. So think of it as another layout. Elements cannot be layout. You can have as many sub-layouts as you want. You can have a sub-layout with 2 columns, with 3 columns, with a banner on top, and so on. Depending on how you extend your view, you can select a specific layout. And the thing is that it is dynamic. You can pass a variable from somewhere, and you say, well, right now I will extend this one, or I will extend this other. And you can change your layout dynamically.
Question: can I only extend this extend in template, or can I, for example, extend from the controller when I
No,
know
it's only from the context of a view.
when I know it's a mobile device? I will
So you need this is a view object. You need a view object. If you get the view object, then you can call that on the view object. If I'm not mistaken. Any other questions? I think we can wrap it up. Thank you for attending this 2-day workshop. I hope you have learned a lot and not to have melted your brains. Sorry if I did, so thanks for coming.